The stolen words. The soft scratch of pen against paper filled Violet Winter's small apartment as evening shadows stretched across her worn oak desk. At 26, she had maintained the same ritual for nearly a decade, ending each day by recording her thoughts in a leather-bound journal, a gift from her grandmother before she passed. Tonight, like many nights recently, her writing centered on him. "Mr. Hawthorne stayed late again," she wrote, her neat handwriting flowing across the page. "I brought him coffee at 8, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, our fingers touched when he took the cup. He thanked me by name, which is silly to even mention, but he's usually so distant. There was something in his eyes tonight, a weariness that made me want to reach out. Of course I didn't." Violet paused, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. Working as a bookkeeper at Hawthorne Industries for the past 3 years had given her financial stability, if not excitement. The company's founder and CEO, Ethan Hawthorne, had built an architectural empire from nothing, becoming one of the city's most eligible bachelors at 34 and completely unobtainable for someone like her. "I know these feelings are foolish," she continued writing. "He lives in a world of galas and boardrooms, while I count other people's money and fade into the background. But sometimes I imagine what it would be like if he really saw me, not just as employee number 127, but as a woman who understands the loneliness behind his success." She closed the journal, securing its brass clasp before placing it in her work bag. Unlike her co-workers who documented their lives on social media, Violet preferred the privacy of pen and paper. Her journal contained everything she could never say aloud: her hopes, her fears, and increasingly, her growing feelings for Ethan Hawthorne. The Hawthorne Industries office buzzed with Monday morning energy as Violet settled at her desk in the finance department. Spreadsheets and invoices awaited her attention, but her focus was interrupted by Cassidy Pearson's dramatic entrance. "Emergency meeting in conference room B," announced Cassidy, the marketing coordinator whose designer clothes and perfect highlights made Violet feel perpetually underdressed in her modest blouses and simple skirts. "Blake wants the quarterly projections like yesterday." Violet nodded, gathering her materials. In her haste, she left her bag partially open, the corner of her journal visible inside. The meeting dragged for over an hour, with department heads arguing over budget allocations. Violet spoke only when addressed directly about financial matters, keeping her eyes on her notes rather than meeting the occasional glance from Ethan at the head of the table. He commanded the room effortlessly in his tailored charcoal suit, his voice deep and assured as he mediated disagreements. When they finally broke for lunch, Violet returned to find Cassidy perched on the edge of her desk. "You rushed out so quickly I couldn't catch you," Cassidy said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I borrowed a pen from your bag. Hope you don't mind." Something in Cassidy's tone set off alarm bells, but before Violet could respond, her co-worker had already sauntered away. With growing unease, Violet checked her bag. The journal was still there, but slightly repositioned. Throughout the afternoon, she noticed Cassidy whispering with other co-workers, their gazes occasionally darting in her direction before quickly looking away. By 4 o'clock, the knot in Violet's stomach had tightened to the point of physical discomfort. "Violet?" Jessica from HR appeared at her desk. "Mr. Hawthorne would like to see you in his office." The walk to the executive floor felt interminable. Violet's mind raced through possible reasons for the summons. Had she made an error in the quarterly reports? Was there a discrepancy in the accounts she managed? Ethan's assistant, a poised woman in her 50s, nodded toward the closed door. "Go right in, dear. He's expecting you." Violet knocked softly before entering. Ethan stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, his back to her. On his desk, next to architectural models and stacks of blueprints, lay her journal. Her heart stopped. "Mr. Hawthorne," she began, her voice barely audible. "Please close the door." "Ms. Winters," he said without turning, as she did. Her hands trembled so violently she nearly missed the handle. When she faced him again, Ethan had turned, his expression unreadable, tall and imposing, with dark hair showing traces of silver at the temples. He studied her with eyes the color of a winter sky. "I believe this belongs to you." He gestured to the journal. "Yes," she whispered, mortification washing over her in waves. "How did it—" "Ms. Pearson delivered it to my office about an hour ago. She suggested it contained information I should be aware of regarding one of my employees." Violet closed her eyes briefly. willing the floor to open beneath her. Cassidy had read her journal, her private thoughts, her secret feelings, and had delivered them directly to the subject of those confessions. "Mr. Hawthorne, I can explain." "Can you?" His tone wasn't angry, which somehow made it worse. It held curiosity, perhaps even a touch of amusement, because I've read only the page that was marked. Apparently, Ms. Pearson found it particularly interesting, and I find myself with several questions. Violet's face burned. "I'll clear out my desk immediately. That won't be necessary." Ethan moved toward his desk, picking up the journal. "What will be necessary is a conversation about some rather specific feelings you've expressed here." He held the journal out to her, "And about a proposition I'd like to discuss with you, Ms. Winters." As Violet reached for her journal with trembling fingers, their hands briefly touched, just as she'd described in her entry. But this time, when their eyes met, Ethan Hawthorne was truly seeing her for the first time. Exposed truth. "You've written quite eloquently about me," Ethan said, gesturing for Violet to sit. She clutched her journal, wishing she could disappear. "Mr. Hawthorne, those words were never meant to be read by me. I gathered that." His tone remained surprisingly gentle. Cassidy's actions were unprofessional. "She's been suspended pending review." Relief momentarily overshadowed Violet's embarrassment. "Thank you. However," Ethan continued, leaning forward, "your journal has presented an unexpected solution to a problem I've been facing." He explained that Hawthorne Industries' founding charter contained an outdated clause. To maintain controlling interest, the CEO must be married by age 35, a milestone he would reach in 3 months. "My grandfather believed family stability ensured business stability," he said with a wry smile. "I've avoided marriage, but now I'm facing a choice: wed or lose control to the board." Violet listened, bewildered by this turn in conversation. "Your journal suggests you understand me better than most," Ethan concluded. "I propose a mutually beneficial arrangement, a marriage of convenience. You'd have financial security and a position in the company. I'd retain control of Hawthorne Industries." Violet stared at him, speechless. The man she'd admired from afar was proposing marriage, not from love but practicality. "Think about it," he said, standing to end their meeting. "This isn't a decision to make, the arrangement." 2 weeks later, Violet signed the marriage contract in Ethan's lawyer's office. The terms were generous: a substantial monthly allowance, a position as financial director, and a prenuptial agreement guaranteeing her future security regardless of how their arrangement ended. "Remember," Ethan reminded her as they left, "this is strictly business. We need to appear genuinely involved, but our private lives remain separate." Their courtship began immediately: orchestrated dinner dates at exclusive restaurants, weekend appearances at charity events, carefully staged photographs for social media. To the world, they were a whirlwind romance. Privately, they maintained careful distance. Working closely with Ethan, Violet discovered his public persona masked a complex man, brilliant but guarded, driven yet occasionally vulnerable in quiet moments when he thought no one was watching. "Why did you agree to this?" he asked one evening as they left a company event. "Financial security," Violet answered, then added softly, "and because I admire what you've built, I want to help protect it." What she couldn't say was that despite the artificial nature of their relationship, her feelings were growing deeper, more complicated, and more real. Unexpected developments. Their wedding was small, but elegant. As they exchanged vows, Violet felt the strange duality of their situation. Speaking words of commitment while bound by a contract that explicitly limited emotional involvement. Yet something shifted during the following months. Working side by side, their professional respect evolved into genuine friendship. Ethan began seeking her counsel on business matters, valuing her insight and practical approach to problems. "You're different from anyone I've known," he told her one night as they reviewed quarterly reports in his home office. "You see beyond the wealth and the name." "I see you," Violet replied simply. The moment lingered between them, charged with unspoken possibility, until Ethan abruptly returned to the spreadsheets. Violet maintained her journal, now chronicling her conflicted heart, falling truly in love with a husband who viewed their marriage as a business transaction. Meanwhile, Ethan found himself increasingly drawn to Violet's quiet strength and authenticity. For a man surrounded by people seeking advantage, her sincerity was remarkable, When Richard Vance, a business rival, hinted at knowing the truth about their arrangement, threatening exposure, Eth